Hello again, everybody. This is Leo McMahon, your host of the Country Club Leaders Podcast. Today's July 11th, 2023, and we're coming to you from sunny South Florida. Today, our guest is Michael Dolan. Mike is a lifelong veteran in the golf industry. Welcome, Mike.
Hi, Leo. Hello, everyone.
Just going through before the podcast, I was going through Mike's career in my mind, and he's had a pretty interesting career compared to most in the golf industry, in the club industry. So, Mike, if you could just take your time and walk us through from beginning to today your career in the golf industry.
Sure. Well, as I like to say, it was a little good luck, a little bad luck, a little happenstance, just kind of how I got through the years in different jobs. It actually started when I was 12. I was a tennis player. My whole family was. But my best friend, Billy Shufelt, was a golfer and a really good one. And he got tired of getting drummed at tennis, because at that time, I think it was like 8th in the state of Florida for 12-year-olds. So he challenged me to come play golf. And so I went out and played golf with him one afternoon. And since that day, I think I played like tennis 12 times since. I gave it up. Loved golf.
You were 8th in the state of Florida in tennis?
Yeah, at 12. Yeah.
Wow. Wow, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, we were a tennis family. And my younger sister, Robin, has been a tennis pro her whole life. She was actually, we always call her the athlete in the family, because she won, as a junior, she won the state of Florida tennis championships right-handed. She blew out her elbow. And she learned to play left-handed over the summer, and came back and made it to the state finals left-handed. She lost, but she made it there, ended up being in Sports Illustrated because of that. And at one point, I think in the 35 and under, she was ranked #1 in the world for club tennis professionals. So she was the athlete in the tennis, but I liked it, but not like golf.
Right.
So I started playing golf in high school right after that, and made the team, I think, in my junior year. So I played for a couple years, and went to Florida State, went to go out for the team, and they were way, way better than me. A guy named Nolan Henke was 27 under for 5 rounds of qualifying. And I think the number 9 guy was like 1 under for 5 rounds. I could make a birdie, but that was about it. So yeah, that was it for me. So I gave up golf, for like 2 or 3 years, until I got a job at Westchester Country Club in the summers, working the bag room with my friend Paul, and went to, every summer went back up there to work. When I graduated, let's see. So in 1987, October, for those of us old enough to remember, it was the first real market crash since the Great Depression, and basically locked down all of Wall Street. I was a finance guy, and there was no jobs, nothing. So my boss at Westchester, a guy named Bob Watson, who I didn't realize at the time what a legend he was, but he said, don't worry, come on up. I need somebody to handle all the bookkeeping and all that. You can come up here. It's like, okay. So a few months later, I packed up my stuff and graduated and went up there to Westchester. And when I got there, things had changed and there was already somebody there to do that. So he's like, don't worry about it. I'll teach you to be a golf pro. And that's how I ended up being a golf pro. Completely.
Wow.
Yeah. Bad luck with the market and what was happening with the jobs and the finance. And then, the job already being taken. So, spent the next few years learning from Bob how to teach, and running a golf shop, running tournaments. Didn't really do too much in the playing end, which was probably good because I couldn't play much. It was a very, very busy place, but I learned how to run tournaments. They had over 200 tournaments a year, and that's kind of where I focused on. Trying to do.
So is that where you started picking up calligraphy?
Yep. I learned to do, because they had to do all the events, and we had, I think we had something like 68 corporate outings, and those were great because you got paid. I got $1 per name to do the scoring for those, and that was nice income. Back then, didn't make a whole lot. I think I got like $200 cash under the table and a place to live. And all the
Mike,
golf.
let me just interrupt you. Let me
Sure.
interrupt you for 1 second. For those of you who don't know, Mike is one of the best scoreboard calligraphy guys in the United States. I mean, his scoreboards are incredible. Sorry to cut you off there, Mike.
No, thank you. That's, anybody wants to compliment me, I stop. I let them go. No, I did. It was a lot of practice, obviously. And then there was a guy named Jack Schneiderman he was the best there ever was. I mean, he was literally an artist. And he taught him and his wife. They both worked the PGA Tour, and they taught people how to do scoreboards, little more than just calligraphy. And so we did, what do you call it? I went to a couple of his seminars and classes, and I learned a lot from him. And lucky enough for me, the working at Westchester back then, there was a PGA Tour event. So Jack put my name in. He liked the work that I did, and he put my name in to be a calligrapher for the tournament. There was 3 of them at the time. Couple of ones for the public, big scoreboards, and then one for the press room. So I worked all 3 of them during my time at Westchester, and it was nice because they paid. It was good work. It was like $300 a day, which at the time was good. And then I got some other jobs and found out like the LPGA was paying $800 a day. So loved doing those.
Wow.
Yeah. And then some of the clubs in the area, they needed people to do their big member guest. And so I started doing those on the side, and those were paying $500-600 a day. It was good side work. Good side work. So I always tell people, and I for years I taught classes on it to teach other young professionals how to do it. And I would try to give them jobs. Like I just didn't have time. As a lot of people know, up north, a lot of the big member guests are all in the same weekend. So they were all looking for people. And I ended up, working for Rick Hartman out at Atlantic, which I still do to this day, 29 years. I've been going out there for their big events. And they, like I said, they compensate you very well. So,
Nice.
yeah. So yeah, my time at Westchester, I started, like I said, started in the bag room, not only work in the bag room, but there was a room behind it, which they gave me to live in. And at 22, it was like, all right, well, I'm going to go here. I'm going to work all day, play in the evenings. It was a lot of fun. And, it was a good way to start. And then slowly you kind of work your way up, and then you started learning to teach. And by the time I had My last year, 2 years there, I was the director of instruction and was teaching pretty much 10 to 12 hours a day. It was
Wow.
nonstop. Yeah, I didn't realize at the time, because it was just normal. But 1990, my last year there, I was making almost 75,000 a year as an assistant, which was, you know, probably top five in the country. It was a crazy amount for an assistant to make. Um, and it was great. The only problem, yeah,
It was 10, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, right?
it was actually seven, because on that seventh day during the summer, we had the outings.
Wow. Okay. Right. Right.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we used to have to find somebody to like do our laundry because we just didn't have time. You know,
Right.
it was different back then. You I think the one thing that, obviously teaching a lot, and try to go out. We play 9 holes in the evening a couple days a week just to like keep the game and enjoy it. I mean, that's why you're in the business. Um,
Right.
but truth be told, I could barely break 80. And that bothered me because being in the Met section's for players. And if you can't play, you're not getting a head pro job. That's just the bottom line. Um, you know, so I decided Bob Watson had retired. Another guy, Brian Morrison, came in, worked for a year, and then he left. And I was like, you know what? It's time. Um, and a job opened up at a place called the Connecticut Golf Club, which was a men's only club in Easton, Connecticut, that had
Hey, Mike, can I can I
yep.
can I cut you off 1 second? We'll go back to the Connecticut Golf Club. You had told me one time you played a little bit of golf with Chevy Ballesteros at Westchester.
Yeah, Sebi would come in on the weekend before, and he was very nice, and he would invite um, a couple of the assistants to come out and play golf with him. And I was fortunate enough to go out there and play with them. Um, and it was great because, such a nice guy, but being able to watch, you know, his short game was just unbelievable, unbelievable. And he could translate it to, quote, to the long game, because he would show us, he'd be out there. And one time, I think we were on the 16th hole at Westchester, um, and the members 16, it's reversed for the tournament. And he dropped a ball at about 60 yards to a 3-tiered green. Pin was down front, and he just opened up this 1 iron and just hit this flop shot to about 5 feet. And he was showing us how to, you bend your knees, you get your hands really, really low, and that way you could open it up and just, you know basically slice the club underneath it. And you just hit these beautiful little flops, and he could do the same thing. He could do it in a bunker. um and I may have taught somebody else on this podcast how to hit that shot.
Yeah, you taught me that. You taught me that shot, and it's been a great asset ever since.
Yeah.
That's why I brought it up.
Yeah. No, and it still holds. If you go looking at when you see teachers and they talk about, proper knee flex in the bunker, get low, get your hands low. Um, that was Sevi. He had unbelievable hands. He could chip and putt from anywhere, anywhere. But yeah, that was one of the benefits of working at Westchester, and the what do you call it, having the tour event there. And so after a few years of being one of the senior people of the staff, we got to choose what we wanted to do that week. And me and my friend Paul Henriksen, Paul would Paul and I chose to run the driving range, which the good and bad part about it was you got to be out there at 4 a.m. setting the range up for the pros. Um, the good part is that you're there, and once you set it up, you know, get all the golf balls lined up. And back then we only had Titleist golf balls for the players. All you had to do was pick up the golf balls, clean them, put them back in the bags, and get them ready to go again. The rest of the time, we just sat there and watched them hit balls, you know, and there is nothing better than watching, you know, tour players hit golf balls and learning about the golf swing. And you see them there working with their teachers, not as many as today, but they were up there, or they were working with each other. You know, and you get to see guys, and back then there was most of them just used it to warm up. If they weren't playing well, they would come back in the afternoon and hit balls. But not like today where they all come back and they're hitting balls before and after. You know, there was a guy, Mac O'Grady, you probably remember him, right?
Yep.
So Mac would come out there, he would hit 13 to 14 buckets after his round every day. Every day. Yep. And his golf swing was the same right as left. It was amazing.
Right.
But that was, again, one of the big benefits of being a golf pro, an assistant golf pro at a facility that had a PGA Tour event.
So then you went to Connecticut Golf Club.
I did. I had realized that I needed to learn how to play. And with Connecticut averaging about 10,000 rounds a year, that my soon-to-be boss, Rod Loesch, Rod had said, look, you can go play at like between 1 and 2 every day. Just work on your game. He knew that the skills that I had gotten at Westchester about running events, I did a lot of the buying in that, you know, for merchandise. So I had a lot of things that I could bring to the table. And in return, he let me play every day. And I went from being probably about a 7 handicap to, I got up to being a +2, which was good enough, you know. In the Met section, that's not going to crack the top 40, but it was good enough to be able to go out there and play. And so that's what was great about being there. You know, small club, small membership, and enjoyed that quite a bit. I learned a lot about the game.
And from there you went, where'd you go after the Connecticut Golf Club?
So, well, again, sort of happenstance. There was a thing, the Met section had a, you know, like a Ryder Cup type thing where they honored, you know, the top 12 assistants, which either by your playing ability, your leadership, meaning you were like president or something like that, or your skills. And so I'd made that about 4 years in a row. Had what I felt were enough skills, and it had enough playing ability now to be able to get a head pro job, or at least, you know, start interviewing. And a job opened up, and the general manager at the club, I won't say which club, but the general manager at the club was very good friends with my father-in-law, who had ties to the golf business. And he had, you know, my father-in-law said, hey, I'm going to call him up. I'm going to get you, I'll get you an interview, make sure you get an opportunity. So I was like, oh, this is great, blah, blah, blah. And he called me up and he said, yeah, come on over and meet with me. We drove around the golf course, showed me around. And when he got done, you know, came in, he said, Mike, he goes, look, he says, you got a great resume. Like everything about, you know, who you are and what you've done. So, but I got to tell you, you're not getting an interview. And I was like, okay, kind of shocked. And I just said, you know, do you mind telling me what the issue is? And he goes, yeah, I mean, off the record, he goes, you know, the club's already decided who they want. And I'm, you know, I'm going to bring in some other candidates to interview, but they're not going to be, they're not going to stand a chance, you know, because we don't want anything confusing. It's basically this. And I was, that was the point where I realized I needed to leave the green grass part of the club industry. I didn't like it. It wasn't, your merits weren't enough.
Right.
Job opened up with the Mets section as the tournament director. So I knew with my background that I could have a decent shot of getting that job. And I applied for it and interviewed, and I got the job. It was awesome. Loved it. Kind of equated it to Thanksgiving dinner. Delicious, great, completely stuffed afterwards. It was more work than being at Westchester, which I didn't think was possible. Yeah. I mean, basically, you get in your car. I lived in Connecticut at that point. So during the season, there are 200 events, and you're going to be at probably 80 to 100 of them. And, I'd get in my car at 5 a.m. so I could be at a club at 6. I'd go over and meet with the superintendent, about the golf prep. I'd already previously been there, but you're going to make sure, look at the golf course, kind of look at the weather conditions to see if you have to adjust the tees or anything like that. If rain was coming, make sure to move pins to a higher location, stuff like that. And then, players are, they were mostly club professional events, but we had pro-ams and junior events. So you're there all day, getting starting rules official, sometimes doing the calligraphy, but being the tournament director, I had to move around quite a bit. So doing that all day, and then at the end, when all the players are done, you get the results, you get all that. Now you pack up your car. You could be out in Lawrence on Long Island. So now I got an hour and a half home. You get home, you take the results. Back then we were still using fax machines, and we had to fax it out to a list of like 15 publications so that we could get the results out, of which 2 of them would post them. But the point was, you get them out to them, and you do all that, and next thing you know, it's 10 o'clock, and you get in bed and you do it again tomorrow. And that was
a lot of details in that job.
Oh, so many 3 or 4 a week doing that.
Right.
And at that point, there wasn't really what I called a tournament coordinator. So I hired a guy named John Farley, to be my tournament coordinator. And he would stay in the office and work on entries coming in and pairings and all that stuff, and coordinate that while I could be out on the road. Because before the first year, I was doing both, and I was like, I'm not going to make it. So
Right.
we did that. And, it was awesome, but completely exhausting. And, I learned many things. One of the things that I did learn is, if you work for someone and their last word in their title is association, that's short for not going to get paid much. And I think my opening salary with them at that point, which was 1996, was $45,000. So that's a pretty big cut in pay from what I had taken before.
Right.
But, I wanted out, I wanted to learn this, and I was able to, fortunately be able to afford to do that. So I was like, okay, yep, we're doing it. And after, 3 years, I was like, all right, this is a lot. My boss at the time, the great Charlie Robson, Charlie was a young guy. I think he was 52 at that point or something. So he wasn't going anywhere. So I'm like, I'm kind of boxed in here. And again, like, many of the turning points in my career and life have been by happenstance. Um, my neighbor to the house behind me stopped me. God, it was right about my 3-year anniversary of that. He was like, "Hey, my name's Mark, da da da." He goes, what do you do? I see you leaving early in the morning and you get back late at night. And I know you're into golf or something, right? And I was like, yeah, I'm this and that. He said, oh, that's amazing. That must be the best in the world. I'm like, oh, it's good, but it's a lot of hours and, not a lot of pay. And he's like, well, you know, really? He goes, well, if you ever want to get out, let me know. And I'm like, what do you do? And he goes, well, uh, I'm a mortgage guy for I think it was Citibank at the time. And, I make over $500,000 a year. I work from 7 to 2 from my home office, and then I go play golf in the afternoon. Well, that kind of woke me up. I was like, man, what am I doing? Um,
Right.
so probably 2 months later, I was like, hey, Mark, let's go for a beer. And we started chatting, and he had a new project he was doing. And, you know, I I decided to do it, and I had to make, really tough call because I loved working with Charlie. He was amazing. And the working for the section, the people there at the office are amazing. Loved them. But, it just couldn't continue, and I couldn't live forever like that. So, I took the job, and I got in, what do you call it? I got in mortgage banking, and that was 1999. Um, and I think it was 99, and did that. Took a little bit, started earning some money. The biggest aspect, or the biggest change, was I had weekends off. And I've said that to people that have been in the golf industry and then get out, and everyone agrees. Once you spend a season, whether it be summer or winter in Florida, whatever it is, and you don't work weekends, and that 4th of July weekend, in the golf business, you kind of dread it. It's a 3 or 4 day weekend that's just like, you know, you're getting, what do you call it? You're getting a lot of you're just working 12 hours a day for 4 days straight. Well, now you're just, going to barbecues, sleeping in, you you don't give that up easily. um so that was that was it. I was never going back, or I said that.
Right.
So I did that for 19 years. Ended up in, sales, and then I became a sales manager. Ended up running the northeastern states for a couple of mortgage banks, and enjoyed it a little bit. Not like golf. I enjoyed the money. Let's put it that way. Um, and I got to.
Now, were you a member at a club during those 19 years?
I was just about to say it took me a few years. That's one of the things I realized is, wow, I can't just go play golf, like normal. At that point, well, you know what? Let me rewind a little bit. Right at that same time, 1998, I decided to start my own golf company, running golf tournaments around the world. So I said, well, let me start in Las Vegas, because I always liked Las Vegas. I'd been out there. And so I set up an event, and going to be 4 days staying at this, a smaller hotel on the Strip, and playing a couple of nice places, high-end kind of resorty places. And I invited a friend of mine, a golf pro, to, invited a lot of golf pros, but one of them was a friend of mine. And at the time, he was had been asked to come out there and work at a place, Shadow Creek, for Steve Wynn. and he was friends with him. And I sent him an invite, and he was out to dinner with Steve Wynn. And he said, hey, Steve, you want to play? My friends come running an event out here. Why don't we play in it? Blah, blah, blah. And he looked at it and he said, I don't understand. Why is he going to this place? Why doesn't he come to the Mirage and he can play Shadow Creek? Well, I got that phone call and immediately changed everything, because Shadow Creek back then was very private. No one got on.
Right.
And switched it up. I called all the people that had signed up and said, hey, we're going to Shadow Creek. Instead of being this, it's going to be, 5,000 a person. Nobody blinked, sold it out in about 2 weeks. Mr. Wynn gave all of us, he gave us limos from the hotel to go to all the golf courses. Everybody got a penthouse suite. There were 75 of them.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I kept my toes in golf by that. I started running 2-3 of them a year, while doing the mortgage thing.
Nice.
So that was how I kept in golf, and I kept my card and had done that. 2001, when 9/11 hit, it killed the travel golf. And so took a year off, and was asked by somebody to run a corporate event. And I was like, all right, I'll give it a run. And, did a couple of those, then got asked to do a big corporate event. And when I say big, it was big for me because, I was charging $10,000 a day to run their event. And
Wow.
it was a lot of work, but these corporations, it was nothing to them. They were spending $500-600 on the day.
Right.
And I was able to get good events. I started out, I got Westchester a week before the Classic, so they got to play with the stands up and all that. The next year, I got them over at Baltusrol. And then the year after that, I got them at Wingfoot. I got them Wingfoot in 97, and I got them 2 weeks before the PGA. So that was really cool. And, they loved that. And it was a good way. Like I said, people weren't traveling, they'd kind of switched. And so I started doing more corporate events, and I ended up doing 3 or 4 of them a year besides my regular job.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when did you join a club to get
So
the other fields for the?
I joined a club about 5 years after getting out of the golf business. Took a few years, and finally did. I joined a place, Racebrook in Connecticut. I met a couple of numbnuts there that are still my friends today. Well, they're not friends; they're acquaintances. But yeah, it's that's what clubs do. You meet people, which is what golf does, and you become lifelong friends.
Right.
So I did that, and was doing the golf, and then working for the banks, and the bank thing ran through its course. Some good years in the early 2000s. 08, 09, during that was pretty rough, and made it, through that part, and did it all the way up until 2018, when I decided to retire and move back. I was actually, a couple months before that, was down here with a couple of the numbnuts and doing a golf trip to Florida. And I used to have a house down here when I was a golf pro for the winters. And I said, yeah, let's do our winter trip. Let's go down to Palm Beach Gardens. Did that. We were having breakfast, and I just looked at the guys and I said, that's it. I'm getting home. I'm selling my house. I'm moving here. And they laughed. And they're like, yeah, sure you are. Your wife's never leaving. Sold the house a couple weeks later. And we were down here what do you call it? Shortly thereafter, bought our house and have been here since.
Nice, nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I spent,
That's quite a career.
yeah. Well, there was, 2.0, which was, I did return to golf after a year of being retired, at 54. I hated it. Because I didn't, most of the people that I knew when I first got here or that I met, let's just say they were older and, wasn't ready to play the green teas and play gin afterwards yet. And a friend of mine and a friend of yours, Mr. Joe Felder, said, Leo is over at Lost City and he's looking for a membership guy. Give him a call. And that's how you and I reconnected.
That was a lot of fun also, by the way. It was a good move for me and a good move for Lost City, and you helped Lost City Golf Club a lot. And at this time, let me thank you for everything you did for me and everything you did for the Lost City Golf Club. When you got there, the membership numbers were kind of low, and now they have a waiting list now, and that all goes to a lot of your hard work and a lot of the experience and skills that you brought with you helped Lost City during that time period.
Well, thanks for the kind words. I was I enjoyed it too. It was like I said, it was a fun challenge. I always said to you, I'll work here as long as it's fun. And it was I readily admit this. People say, oh, you worked hard. I didn't, Leo. I worked hard when I worked for the section. I worked hard when I worked at Westchester. I worked smart when I worked at Lost City. Right. I used the experience, a lot from the banking world, about sales techniques. They used to send us to sales stuff all the time, and I used a lot of that to drive members. And I'm happy to say I think there was 248 members that I signed in a 3-year period.
Pretty amazing to watch.
Yeah.
Mike, what I'm pulling from all this and all of your experiences and the little bit that I work with you, you are a tremendous learner. You're not shy about going after something new and learning it, and you become much more valuable because of your ability to learn. I know when I was at Lost City with you, you learned how to fly a drone, which I thought pretty impressive. And we were right next to an airport, and you had to learn a lot about air traffic control.
Yeah. It's funny. You know where I got that from? My getting married. And it was because I used to, as a golf pro early on, you're up north and you come down to Florida and you play golf or you work at a club in the winters. I got married and couldn't do that. So my first year up in Connecticut, sitting there in a cold, snowy winter, after, the first few months, I was like, all right, all I'm doing is trying to figure out how many Twinkies I can get in my mouth at one time. I was like, I'm getting fat. I got to do something. So I was like, all right, I got months to figure this out. And during that time, one time I went to learn to be a bartender. The next winter, I used to take drafting class back in high school, and I did calligraphy. So one of our members was an architect, and he hired me during the winter months, and I did drafting for him, and he showed me how to do that. So every winter I wanted to learn something new,
Right.
And it was really just so I wouldn't get fat.
Right.
Didn't help.
Yeah, because first impression, people, boy, Mike Dolan, he's a smart guy. Now I'm thinking Mike Dolan is a great learner. You're not afraid of learning anything, which is pretty amazing to watch, actually. And it's a good lesson for all of us.
Yep.
The more you learn, the more valuable you become.
Yeah, it is true. It is very true. You've got all those things you bring to the table, and the drone thing is one of the things. The golf course was closing for 7 months, wasn't going to sell anything. The members, dispersed over the summer, even the local ones, because they're not coming to the club. How can we show them what's going on? And I was like, you know what? Why don't I learn to fly a drone? And the thing about it is flying the drone was the easy part. The hard part was learning, as you said, the air rules and doing that. But the same thing was learning how to film edit, because you have to get a film editor and learn how to do that. And then you had, voice overlays and music and, putting it together so that it was fun for the members.
Right. It's a lot of work, and people just think it just appears with a magic wand, but it was a lot of work went into that.
Yeah, it was.
So
but
what one or two people influenced your career or your life, would you say, other than your mother and father and your siblings?
I would say, Rod Loesch and at Connecticut Golf Club and Charlie Robson were the two biggest in the golf business. Old school, hardworking, always every day. I mean, Rod he was out there at 6 a.m. with a leaf blower, and he'd be like, Rod, man, you're the director of golf. He goes, it's got to look right. I said, and I like getting up in the morning. Okay. Charlie, same thing. I mean, Charlie would drive 3 hours to a golf tournament to be there for 25 minutes to say hello to the sponsor, to the club pros, to the host pro, and then drive back. He used to do it. We'd have an event in Jersey and he'd drive down to Atlantic City. He'd come for the cocktail party, which started at 7. He'd be there till 9 and he'd drive back to Long Island. I'm like, Charlie, man, we got rooms here. Stay the night. No, I got to be somewhere at 7 in the morning.
Wow.
That man was hardworking.
Right. And you know what? From my experience, it didn't matter if you won the U.S. Open or you caddied in the U.S. Open. He made time for you, to try to help you out.
Yeah, he reminded me a lot of what do you call it? Arnold Palmer. If you ever got to talk with Arnie, which I was fortunate to do twice, when he talked to you, it was like you guys were the only people like on an island. I mean, he just his complete attention was on you and everything you were saying. And that's how Charlie was, he was great. He was great.
So what was the biggest turning point in your career, if you can pick one out?
That's a good question. I mean, I guess in a good way, was when I got to Westchester and the finance job was already taken, and Bob said, I'm going to make you a golf pro. And that's how I got in it.
Right.
I think, what do you call it? Probably one of the coolest days was there was a guy that used to teach at Westchester, and his name was Harry Cooper. And nobody's probably heard of him, but you could look it up. His name is Light Horse Harry Cooper because he played so fast. Nobody finished second in majors more times than him without winning a major.
Wow.
Yeah. And great guy, taught you a lot about the game and teaching and that. And in 1986, Harry was being honored among the 100 greatest golfers ever. And there was a big thing at the Waldorf Astoria. And he got to invite a +1, and he invited me, which was, I was just a young assistant pro, just learning, and went there, and before it started, there was a party upstairs for all of them, all the 100. And you walk in the door, and Arnie is talking to Ray Floyd, and looks up, and they see Harry, and like, hey, Harry, and he's introducing to all of them. And Harry sits me down, and Harry at the time was probably 80. He sets me down he goes, sit right here, Mike. He goes, I want to introduce you to somebody. And he shuffles over to this table that's got a bunch of people around it. And, he kind of nudges his way in. And all of a sudden, this guy stands up and kind of hugs Harry. And then Harry walks him over to me, and he says, Mike, I'd like you to meet Ben Hogan.
Wow.
And I was like, starstruck. The guy seemed like he was 12 feet tall. Obviously he wasn't, but I knew that right then. I was like, yeah, this golf thing, I like this. This is cool.
Wow.
This is cool. Yeah.
So where is your friend Paul today? It sounds like he got you involved in a lot of this too.
He did. Paul is still my best friend. He lives in North Carolina. He was in the golf business he was a director at a club in Asheville, North Carolina. Club changed hands a few times. He kind of got bumped out, but they let him, in a good way. He is now works for a club fitter, and he's doing that. He loves it. He loves, like a lot of people that get out, once you do the whole being in the club and the pernicious attitudes of the boards kind of scare you off and get you out, and that's what happened. And now he's just doing the club fitting thing, and he loves it. And we actually we just did a golf trip. Well, it was 2 years now, but went to Cabot in Canada. But still, great friend.
So you've been a member at country clubs. You've worked at country clubs. You've worked at businesses that involve golf, but weren't directly involved with a club.
Yeah.
So you've seen golf from a lot of different perspectives. What would you pass on to a club president or a club general manager in, let's say, a paragraph, to all the clubs around the United States? If you do this, you got a good shot at being successful?
Let the people, to the club president, the people that you hired to run the place, golf pro, superintendent, and that, let them do their job. They got the background and the education to get the job. Now let them do the job. You're going to be president for a year or two. The better clubs have somebody president for like 10 or 12 years. And they get more of a chance, but most clubs don't. And like every 1 or 2 years, you can't just have, oh, this is our project, this is where we're going. That's not a very good way to lead. Let the people you hire lead the club. That's why you picked them. I think I've said this before. I said it to my club. They asked me to be on the golf committee, and I was like, no, I don't believe in it. And they go, what do you mean? I think, go talk to an attorney. Does an attorney have a committee of their 8 biggest clients that meet monthly and tell them how to run their business? No, that'd be silly. So why does a golf club do that? The only committees that the members should have is a membership committee, because you want to decide who else gets to be a member at your club, and a finance committee, that's run by your CFO, but you look at the numbers so you know where you're spending your money. Most people don't realize, golf clubs are nonprofits. They're C6, C7s. So everything you put in gets put back out in a service or a benefit to the members. That's where members have an input. They shouldn't be on the golf committee. They don't know how to run tournaments. run a golf operation. They don't know anything about growing grass. I just don't believe that any of them. You could have somebody on the board that oversees your superintendent or your golf pro. That's fine. That's, you want that. But running it, making decisions, inputs, nope, don't believe in it.
So what I would say in closing, I had the privilege of working with Mike for a few years. And what I got from that was Mike challenged me on a daily basis. And when you're the general manager, hey, who's this guy challenging me, But to everybody out there, you need more people like Mike that will challenge you, and it made me, let me listen to this guy. I have to evaluate what he's saying, and will it help the team?
Yeah.
And there's too many employees are afraid to challenge or aren't in an environment to challenge their boss. But it's for the benefit of the team to listen to all parties. And Mike had a lot of strong opinions, and we went with a lot of them.
Yeah, I'm probably a little too opinionated at times, but it's nice having somebody like you as a boss who could sit there and be like, all right, that's Mike being Mike, and you know what, at the end of the day, let me say this about you. I haven't worked with anybody who loved the job and the club as much as you did. And, it bummed me out that certain members and board members couldn't see that about you. I was just like, man, he loves this place. They'd be like, oh, they'd say nice things about me and the job. I'm like, look, I don't love this. This is a job to me. I said, that guy right there, he loves this place. He lives it. I go home at 5 o'clock. I'm not thinking about it. He is. He's thinking about it at 9 o'clock, and son of a bitch is texting me. Hey, what do you think about this? Leo, I'm having ice cream. Leave me alone.
On that note, that's probably a good thing and a bad thing, but because I'm retired now and I'm looking back, and maybe you even could look back. We put a lot of hours in. It was fun, but like you said, it was nice having weekends off. It's nice being retired.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So, Mike, thank you for coming on today. Hopefully, there's somebody out there who can benefit from all this. And if you are speaking directly to a young person getting into the club industry, what would you tell them right now today?
Get in, give it your all. Ask yourself, is it in your blood? Like the family that owns restaurants, that's just in their blood. That's what they do. If it is, stick with it. If it's not, you know what? Go find something else, makes you happy, and then, join a club and go, do it that way. And if you do it that way, don't get on the board. Enjoy the club. It's your escape.
Very good advice. And Mike, thanks for coming on today. And everybody, thanks for listening. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Leo.
Have a good day.